happy Friday evening, November 6th, 2020. I'm Riley King, and welcome to Election 2020 Special, right here on the Riley King Network. As you all know, Election Day was on November 3rd. And, we still do not have a winner in the presidential race. It is either Joe Biden or Donald Trump that will win the race. And still no clear winner. Election Day again was on November 3rd, and it is day 4 with still no winner of a new president. Let's begin this Election 2020 special broadcast right here on the Riley King Network. Let's get started. And good evening, everyone. I'm Riley King, and welcome to this Election 2020 special. Let's begin right here on the Riley King Network. So again, as we've said in the opening of our broadcast, we do not have a winner yet for this presidential race. Election Day was on November 3rd. It is Friday, November 6th. Day 4 with still no president. Let's take a look at your national election results and see where each candidate stands to get to the winning number to become president. So here are your election results. Joe Biden is in the lead. He has 253 votes. Donald Trump has 214 votes. To win, you need 270. So, as you can see, Joe Biden is close to the 270 mark. Donald Trump is not. Let's take a look at the United States map and see where and what states they need to win left. So, we are looking at these states, these key states here. We have Pennsylvania we're still waiting on, North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, and Alaska. Those are the key states that we are still waiting on for either Joe Biden or Trump to win. In the red, these are the states that Trump have won, and also in Nebraska here you're seeing blue lines, so Joe Biden won some parts in Nebraska and Trump won some parts in Nebraska. Also in Maine, Joe Biden won a lot of Maine and Trump won a few sections of Maine, as you can see. So again, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, and Alaska, we are still waiting on. They're still counting votes in those states as we are speaking. Joe Biden is expected to be speaking sometime this evening and addressing the nation. And we will be sure to pass that along to all of you when he does. Election 2020 live updates and results. Votes are still being counted in several key states. Election Day has turned into election week as the counting of votes continues across the United States, with primarily results showing the path to re-election has narrowed for President Donald Trump in several key battleground states. Candidates need 270 Electoral College votes to secure the presidency. ABC News projects Trump currently has 214, while former Vice President Joe Biden has 253. Biden's count includes Wisconsin, where ABC News is characterizing him as the apparent winner because of the vote is very close and has not yet been certified. Both Trump, the Republican incumbent, and Biden, Democrat challenger, have addressed the nation while waiting for election results and offered contrasting messages on the American election process. Trump has swummed doubt in its integrity, firing off bliss claims of voter fraud after his campaign filed a barrage of lawsuits to stop vote counts in a number of crucial states. Biden, meanwhile, has projected confidence that he'll win the White House and has urged Americans to keep calm while every vote is counted. The 2020 election has shattered voting records, surpassing the 138 million who went to the polls in 2016. Biden has also broke the record for obtaining the most votes ever cast for U.S. presidential candidate, with more than 73 million and counting. Your top headlines. Last of Georgia vote trickling in. Biden leading Arizona by 36,835 votes. Biden ahead in Pennsylvania by 14,541 votes. At 8:21 p.m. update. Last of Georgia voting trickling in. The vote in Georgia is trickling in little by little, county by county, with about 25,000 ballots outstanding with the potential to be counted. Most were overseas/military and provisional ballots. Biden is leading by 4,023 votes and at about 49.4%, 2,456, 561 votes to Trump's 49.3%, 2,452, 538 votes. 8:06 p.m. Nevada judge denies GOP motion to halt signature machines, change observation rules. The Nevada District Court judge denied an emergency injunction request by the Nevada GOP group for Clark County to stop using its signature verification machines and to give more leeway to ballot counting observers. Judge James Gordon said he didn't think the plaintiffs came to the court with significant evidence to get what is required of extraordinary relief of an injunction that would get him to dictate how Clark County should do their jobs. The injunction relief dictated poll workers to manually check all ballot signatures instead of using the machines. Gordon noted that halting the use of signature verification machines, which verify about 30% of the signatures on ballots, leaving 70% to be done manually already would significantly delay results. The public interest is not in favor of disrupting the process and continuing the ballots, he said. And 7:57 p.m. update. Biden leading Arizona by 36,835 votes. Biden is leading Arizona by 36,835 votes with 49.8% of the vote compared to Trump's 48.7%. About 244,000 ballots are outstanding statewide. Arizona has 11 electoral votes. Now let's listen in to some of ABC News coverage.
Highest number of new cases per capita. 93% of those counties went for Trump. So how do you strike the right balance? I think that's got to be top of the agenda for the next phase.
That is the key question. Of course, though, they go together, David. The economy can't grow if the crisis is not controlled.
And that's the argument that Joe Biden has tried to make. You know, there was that one question where I asked, would you endorse a lockdown if science said so? And he said yes in that interview. And then that was used by the Trump campaign, saying Joe Biden will inevitably bring another lockdown. He had to clarify that no, and we would do regional lockdowns only if absolutely necessary and only if the science dictated it. But I think it's interesting that Lindsay brought up Ohio, because perhaps one route, if Joe Biden, it is determined if he's the president-elect, if it goes that way, he has said that he'll immediately call governors and mayors across this country, first of all, to find out what they need, and second of all, to build an alliance with them. And one governor in particular is the very popular governor of Ohio, Mike DeWine, Republican, who gets very high marks in his state. But he said, just in the last 24 hours, COVID is coming after all of us, and it, quite frankly, doesn't matter whether you voted for Donald Trump or Joe Biden. You know, all of us are going to get hit with this. Couple of numbers out of Ohio alone. Not only are they seeing a rise in cases, as the country is, but hospitalizations. And this is what we heard today from so many health authorities across the country. We heard it on GMA this morning, Dr. Jha, saying hospitalizations will come next. It's coming right behind these record numbers since the pandemic began that we're just seeing this week. And in Ohio alone, hospitalizations up by 55% in just 2 weeks. 541 were in ICU beds, and that's a record for Ohio since this all began.
Martha Rose, thank you, David. Martha Rose, you spent a lot of time traveling the country, and you saw one of the paradoxes here. If you go to polling, it shows that most Americans, and a pretty solid majority of Americans, say, yeah, well, I'll wear a mask, but there are deep regional differences beneath that unity.
There are, and I'm glad you brought up Ohio, because when I pulled into Ohio in September, as we did our cross-country trip, that's the state I was very stunned by. There were people wearing masks, especially in the big cities, but they were crowded, they were going on with their lives, they were just sick of the whole idea of COVID. I mean, they were sort of playing off what President Trump has said, COVID, 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 too much about that. So there were people adhering to that, but there was an absolute blue-red divide as well. I mean, you go into a redder state or more rural areas, they're definitely not wearing masks. You brought up Governor DeWine, David, and one of the things over the past months with Governor DeWine and those polling, and you could hear it in his comments over these months. At first, will we do a mask mandate? No, we won't do that. Then because he got too much pushback, and then he decides they'll wear masks. I think one of the things that Joe Biden has to do is have clarity and compassion about this. I think we as a nation have forgotten how serious this is, how many people have lost loved ones. Remember those times in New York City? You all remember that there up in New York, cheering at night for our healthcare workers. They're still on the job. They're still dealing with this every day. They are losing healthcare workers among them at a rapid rate. So I think if Joe Biden is elected and he takes this on, he has to remind Americans of the suffering and the sacrifice of our frontline workers, of our first responders, of our healthcare workers, and have some clarity. People still have so many questions about COVID. They stop doing the COVID briefings every day at the White House, and you may not need COVID briefings every day at the White House, but I still think there lacks clarity from the administration on what you should do, why you should do it. It really isn't that hard. Look at us tonight. I'm socially distancing in Washington, D.C. because we want the studio a little smaller, because we're respecting those protocols. It is really not that hard to wear a mask, socially distance, get the country back together. It is going to be a tough job if Joe Biden gets in there to remind the country of something they don't really want to hear about anymore, especially in those states where they don't want masks and say that's just our freedom. Remind them of seatbelts, remind them of secondhand smoke. This is the best way to proceed, and Joe Biden has really said he will follow the science. He just needs to make it clear and be compassionate about it.
Matthew Raddatz, thanks very much. I want to bring in Chris Christie on this. I know you spoke to Governor DeWine, but also just play this out a little bit. Former governor, if Joe Biden called you, what would be your best advice on how to work with the nation's governors, Democrat and Republican, on this crisis?
I'd say send all the governors a very clear message about what you want the national policy to be. And it's very simple, really. Everyone should be wearing masks. Everyone should social distance. And everyone should be washing their hands frequently. But lastly, you can do that in parallel with getting the country reopened in a gradual way. I think if we go back to lockdown, I think it's going to be something that the governor's going to have a hard time enforcing because there is lockdown fatigue in the country. But what you say, you make a deal with the American people. You say, listen, if you're not going to wear masks, we have to lock down. This is your choice. But if you will wear masks and do these other things, then we can avoid a complete lockdown again. I think if it's presented as a compromise with the American people and a challenge, that they'll rise to it and do it. But what's happened so far has been, you've had some people saying, don't wear a mask, other people saying, wear a mask and lock down and be at home. And people don't like either of those messages. I think you have to blend those messages. And I think he can do that, given what he said.
And Rahm Emanuel, you were Barack Obama's incoming chief of staff in 2000, coming out of the 2008 election. The economic crisis then was the number one priority. COVID and how it impacts the economy, the number one priority right now. What are the 2 or 3 things Joe Biden needs to do?
Well, first of all, I think we made a mistake with this blunt instrument of the lockdown. So you do the things that everybody can engage in. Mask, hand washing, social distance. Apply the testing and the tracing in targeted areas, get medical supplies to poor communities, people of color, and the elderly, so you can contain it in that way. In the other piece of this, the first part of the stimulus is about creating a floor so the economy doesn't sink anymore. You can't get an economy growing if states and companies are laying people off. The second piece, what are the things that we got to do to rebuild? Mainly on infrastructure. And there's going to be people like at JCPenney and other retail, those jobs aren't coming back. Give them the tools, 6 months, you're going to become a computer coder. We'll pay for it. And you'll get millions of people to sign up for that. They are not going back to parts of the retail economy, and we need to give them a lifeline to what's the next chapter. And you will get bipartisanship from a lot of Republicans in the Senate for the rebuilding part. One part of the economic move quickly, create a floor so it doesn't sink. The next part, how do you bounce back in and give it to people and states? And I do want to come back to something we said in an earlier segment. You want to solve a problem? Cash. It works unbelievably. You see, it's a great ideology. People like cash.
Yeah.
Get it to people, get it to local governments.
The question is, will Congress go along? Have to take another quick break. We'll be right back.
Okay, and there you go on some of the ABC News coverage. And, Cindy McCain, widow of John McCain, said, I know John would want what is best for our country. What is best for our country is not our party. What's best for our country is Joe Biden. That is what Cindy McCain said. And, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We will be right back with more special coverage right here on the Riley King Network of Election 2020. Do not go anywhere.